if you just want to know about, I went to heaven, it was great, God spoke to me, superb. But there's a dark side to this. There isn't a day, a moment, an hour that goes by where I wish that I wasn't here. I now started to understand why people were committing suicide. Survivors were taking their own lives. We think differently. We don't have the same boundaries as a lot of us who haven't had that experience. This is why we struggle. This is why we struggle.
Welcome to the crossroads of the known and the unknown. This is AJ Parr's Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
Hello, beautiful people. Today we'll be talking about a very interesting topic. This time we'll be sharing with the multi-near-death experiencer, Raymond O'Brien. He is a certified NDE counselor and a member of the British Association of Counselors and Psychotherapists. Raymond helps other survivors and their families integrate their experiences. And today we'll be talking about the lack of NDE care and what he calls the dark side of near-death experiences. Hello, Raymond. Welcome back.
Hi, AJ. Pleasure to be back with you again. I'm very well. Hello to everybody who's watching this. It's a pleasure to be back and to be able to speak about one of my favorite subjects is how do we survive after a traumatic, verified near-death experience. When I say verified, things in my field of work now, what we're actually finding out is the difference between a near-death experience and a verified death experience. A lot of the buzzwords to do with the NDE side of things, I find that a lot of the clients who I work with don't resonate with what they're, shall we say, with the help that they're getting at the moment. A lot of us, including myself, which is the reasons why I've really gone out there alone and kind of left mainstream interest in, how can I say, in a lot of people think an NDE experience is a beautiful experience, and it can be for some of us, but for an awful lot of us, once that incredulity of having that experience, once you come to terms with it, or try to come to terms with it, this is where some of the issues start. Some of us don't fit in with the mainstream train of thought. A lot of us have suffering from the PTSD side of it. The PTSD side of it, I think I may have mentioned it to you before, AJ, doesn't just come with the trauma, with the scary side of the death experience. It actually comes with the wonderment. And this is what I've been finding with an awful lot of clients. A lot of clients won't give interviews anymore. A lot of clients find that being pulled back into that moment can have profound effects. It's something which, again, I often resonate. Many of us who do come back, we're like flowers. If somebody give us the attention, there's something about the trauma that affects us as human beings that makes us want to share our experience at all costs. And many of us, and I include myself, in the first 7-8 years of my experience, I done one of my interviews with you, AJ, I locked myself into isolation for 5 years to shut down everything. I couldn't handle society. I couldn't handle the questions. I couldn't find help. The only help that I could find were people who would be telling me at how beautiful my experience was. You're lucky to be here. Nobody spoke about the guilt side of it, about the impact that it puts upon family members, others around us, how we interact with everyone. There was a huge gap, and there still is. I think Lilia from NDE, from the Lee Whitting show, spoke about it marvelously. There's a huge gap of care for us. There's, because of what happens to us, because of where we've been. It's of immense interest to others, and I understand that, but it's not helping the survivor, and that's where I'd stepped in as a registered counsellor for that. So I focus in on: did you die? Were you verified to have died? And that this field of work is so specialised, and you really have to pick your counselor, your mentor, in helping you where to go with this. There's so much transference, so much projection into this. My own experiences of working with other counselors to help me. I'm sad to say that the intention of doing well was there, but the actual experience of how to deal with verified death experiences is very, very rare. And I'm starting to find now with a lot of my clients who have if I have time to see them, are now telling me that they have struggled all along with what they're hearing on mainstream media. The expectations that you should be very happy with what's happened to you. There's an awful lot of input now from the consciousness side. A lot of my clients are speaking to me about how it's affected them on a daily basis. How are they coping? What has come up for them? How have you changed since your event? What's happened to you? How have your family? How are they coping with the new you, with that new experience that's been put inside you? And this is something which we are left completely barren with. There isn't a lot of people we can talk to. It's about. I would go so close to say that a lot of experiences don't understand the consequences of going forward with what is going on, and which means the family don't get it either. How things have changed for me, just myself. Over the last, I had my 15th birthday on the 3rd of March, and it was my rebirth day. And I was with my partner, and she said, "Isn't it your second birthday today?" I went, "Yeah." She said, "Are you going to celebrate it?" And AJ, I couldn't walk back into that paradigm. It was like, I'm pleased I'm here. I'm very pleased that I have the ability to help others, but to be pulled back to that is like, so this is really the first year that I hadn't celebrated. I didn't feel there was a need for it. I'd given an interview about a month ago to a really, really great guy. I won't give his name, but he came unprepared for the interview, and it was a bit of a car crash, to be honest with you. The guy really didn't do his research. What happened? He kept saying to me, what happened with your cardiac arrest? Tell me physically what happened. And I actually struggled with his line of questioning because he didn't understand what he was asking. It's like there isn't a comprehension between a cardiac arrest when you physically die. It's very hard to get that across about that very personal experience. And many of us, it's such a difficult line to cross. I had a client the other day where we touched upon. I asked, "How have you been coping? Out in the real world?" I want to run away all the time. I want to go back home. I struggle with staying here. This is not where I belong. But no one's telling me this. Everyone is telling me that you need to be grateful. God has brought you back here. So move forward. But it's not that easy. It's just not that easy. We'll have an idea what it's like to lose a parent. We'll get that. But coming back as a survivor is a whole new ball game. Many of us self-harm and give interviews. When I not long after I had my experience, I was giving interviews left, right, and centre, but I didn't understand the effect that it was having upon me. It was an outpouring. It was an unzipping of the emotions. I'd had some interviews. I'm good now. I'm used to it now. But I'd be so upset for days, and I still wasn't getting the right help. There's IANDS are amazing, International Awareness for Near-Death Studies. Superb, absolutely great group. But if you want to look for people who have been treated for the frightening side of the NDE, you're going to be coming up against an awful lot of people who haven't been there. Many of who are treating us have not experienced what is happening to us. And that has led me to start sitting down and understanding, what does that do to us as a survivor? Some of us will never get over it. You know, a client said to me, you know, it's been great to talk to you, because for 20 years I've been suffering with what I have experienced, you know, and I wasn't being believed. She said, but, you know, just coming and having a quick chat with you, I know that, you know, I get that, you know, it's a lovely thing to impart. But there's a lot of the work that I do that I find very sad, because people get lost. I don't know whether you've noticed it, AJ, but there's a psychosis that's going on at the moment of it's almost like a spiritual psychosis. People are latching on to the most abstract spiritual things. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that we're not listening to what God has put inside us. You know, some people would rather not listen to what God is telling them. The voice, as Peter Panagel used to say, the voice with a capital V. They're not listening to this intuition. They're not doing that, and it's coming at a real cost. Many people are getting lost and they're not coming back. So now when clients come to see me, I have a whole new way of working with them. You know, many of us, because of our experiences, are frightened to be vulnerable. You know, we're very boundaried. Many of us are very quiet. Our levels of suffering have probably gone up 1 or 2 notches to the average person who we meet. Many people can't associate to what we've seen. A lot of the things that I do, that I work with now, are coping with how to be vulnerable but not to get hurt. It's a whole new modality of counselling. It's something that isn't out there, and it's being recognised. Each month I get busier and busier and busier and busier. And with my partner, we're trying to work out how we can get to more people, how we can get to future counsellors, to, you know, giving the message to people like yourself who do take time out to do the research, you write the books. It's amazing, and it's so helpful because it's very specialised. You know, it's not all unicorns and rainbows and you know, I've seen some headlines, but I've been where people are. I understand why we do a lot of the stuff that we say. It's because the brain takes so long to recover. It's a difficult path to come back from. And it's something which I find is not really looked at. It's not looked upon as sexy.
Would you say there's a high percentage of experiences that simply are not known? If you watch internet, if you see YouTube, you know, most people end up saying, wow, I want to have a near-death experience too. But however,
Yes.
You are mentioning that there are many cases in which people who actually have these terrifying near-death experiences, they almost never recover. So would you say there is a big percentage of these cases?
Yeah, I think what I was very quick to learn, and I learned it through my own experience, was I lived a lie for an awful long time. I was always brought up to look at the positive side of things. You know, every cloud has a silver lining, and that's how I treated my event. So I felt ungrateful if I'd go, do you know what, I'm really struggling with this. You know, there isn't a day, a moment, an hour that goes by where I wish that I wasn't here. And you know, when people are looking at you going, well, gee, you should count yourself lucky that you are. It's like, no, it started to corrupt me. It started to really affect me. I now started to understand why people were committing suicide. Survivors were taking their own lives. It's like, because we're running up against a train of thought that, oh, you're very lucky, you've been to heaven, you must be the chosen one. You know, at first I was comforted with, well, you're still alive. But over the 15 years, I've really struggled with that. Really struggled with that. It's like, well, why me? Why have I been brought back? Am I being punished for this? Is it the reason why I'm back here? Is it because I'd done something really bad in my previous life? So many of us are coming back with this, like, why have I been brought back here? As I said, a lot of my clients are not happy to be back. It's there. We are almost living a lie.
I understand a high percentage of kids who have near-death experiences have committed
Yes.
suicide, and they want to go back, and also adults. Do more people who have had NDEs commit suicide than normal people?
That's what I'm led to believe. I'm led to believe many of us hide it. I don't know percentages. I can only speak about clients who I've seen over the last 15 years. For them to sit in front of somebody who gets it, who says it's all right. It's all right if you don't want to be here. It's all right to say that, because many of us as survivors are saying that, and this is where the guilt comes in, and that's part of what pushes us over the edge. It's people are tending to us. Not everybody comes back like me. I mean, I've come back with brain damage. I've come back with dreadful angina of the heart. I remember when the pandemic came, I should have gone in for what had happened. My stent had collapsed, and I couldn't be seen because of the pandemic. And it just so happened that the cardiac surgeon, who's a good friend of mine, rang me up and asked, I haven't seen you for a couple of years, just thought I'd give you a phone call. How have you got on with your operation? And I said, I'm 18 months in, and I've not had the operation. And he sounded staggered on the phone. He said, I'll make some calls and I'll get back to you. So he got back to me. And but in those 18 months, I tell you what, AJ, it was probably the worst 18 months that I've ever had, because my heart was failing. It was like I would have these arterial fibrillations where the heart would miss a beat, because the stent was closing over the main artery again of my heart. And so every day, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 times a day, I thought I was going to die. And I'd got to such a point where I was sleeping more than I was awake because I couldn't get the energy. And that brought a different mindset into me of like, what is this doing to you? You need to remember this, Raymond, because there's going to be other patients who are going to see you and who are expecting an answer of, why do I feel like this? It brings to me the most essential thing is, as a counsellor, not to practice outside your field of experience, because you will hurt survivors if you don't understand what you're doing in this field. So it was lovely to hear you say earlier, a lot of people say, oh, it must have been great to have an NDE. I'd like to have an NDE. Ayahuasca is like an NDE. Well, I've never done ayahuasca, but what I do know is that when you're close to death, over a period of 18 months, you are in serious trouble. Your relationships are going to suffer. Your self-perceptions are going to suffer. You start thinking, why is this being put upon me? What's happening? And you get to, I don't know whether you've ever been there, but my first event, I didn't know I had heart issues. But when I got lost in the system and they said, you've got to come back in to have another operation, I understood what it was like to be back on the road again, to dying. I had 18 months of looking at that. And every day, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? I was smashed. It was like I was in a prison cell, which was lying down on my couch because I had no energy. It was like somebody would take me outside and go, we're going to execute you now. And you get ready for it because the heart's hopping and skipping and bumping. And is it going to stop? And then they go, no, we're just going to bring you back in. And this would go on for like, as I said, into double figures, day in, day out. So many of my clients have experienced this. And when we come into the medical world, or we think we can find comfort or solace in talking to others, well, and we don't get the satisfaction this is when we start to think, I can't do this anymore.
What is the biggest help you give these people? What is the biggest help you would have liked to receive?
It's a great question. I would like to have been informed. There was nowhere I could go where I wouldn't have been not felt guilty about I don't want to be here, because it affects people. I said to my partner, she asked me, would you go back now? I said, yeah, I would. If I was told, did I want to stay here? Did I want to go back to the other side now? I'd go right now. And she was devastated, absolutely devastated. And that's the power of it. Why would you want to go back when, you're here with me? And trying to explain that, without a huge guilt trip, it's massive.
So you still want to go back?
Yes.
And you still feel guilty?
I still feel guilty about not wanting to stay here. It's like, and it's huge.
Do most of your patients feel that way, that they want to go back?
Yes.
And they also feel guilty?
Yes. I would say out of everyone I've seen, I'm not into double figures about those who don't feel that way. And this is why we lie. This is why we lie to loved ones. It's like, and that's why it's always such a shock. Well, it seemed all right. I'm like, oof. It's because you should be grateful that you're back here. That this is the opinion. And people can be honest when they come and see me. They know, most people who come to see me will have seen my videos, seen your videos, and it's great. And that's one of the first, within the first 2 sessions, that's what I'm hearing. Is it okay? You said in your video that you wanted to go back. When I'd heard that, I became very emotional, because that's where I am. But how can I tell my daughter? How can I tell my son? How can I tell my husband that what they give me is not enough for me to stay here? And so it can actually be a curse. It's like, but not in the normal sense of a curse. It's like, we have seen something else. We know, Dr. Sampania, great researcher, fantastic medical researcher, but he's not an experiencer. That's the big difference. There's a huge difference between research and experiencer. And that's what I'm trying to get across to other researchers. You need to change the way you speak to us. If you want to know, if you just want to know about, I went to heaven, it was great, God spoke to me, superb. But there's a dark side to this. And it's not giving credit to our experiences and how it transforms us when we come back. We think differently. We don't have the same boundaries as a lot of us who haven't had that experience. It's levels of trauma, it's levels of wonderment. It separates us from mainstream society, and this is why we struggle. This is why we struggle. This is why a lot of us will be almost have an obsession to tell others, but it's the wrong way to approach this. That's my experience. I'd understood over the period of time as I worked with clients was, for me, obviously, when did it happen? How long ago did it happen? And and this is what I focus in on. The event is very important, because without the event, the client wouldn't be sitting in front of me. But what I look at for now is, what are the after effects of what you have experienced? I'm not so much focused in on, say like mine, how many times did you die? That's already happened. It's like that's gone, and we'll deal with that trauma of like, oh my word, I died. Like, we'll deal with that. That's a long road to deal with that sort of thing. But what I am finding is that there seems to be, at the moment, in my experience, 2 types of survivors. There's the survivor who gets locked into roomy quotes. There's the survivor who gets, who develops this psychosis. All of a sudden they become Mr. or Mrs. Wisdom, but it's not a true wisdom. It's a wisdom. It's like a coat. They'll wear it. but they're not finding, the true self. So the second survivor is the one who doesn't have the Rumi quotes, or does get caught up in it, and has now realized that it doesn't satisfy. It's not enough. It's not that doesn't feed my, I need to know that, and I was one of those. I wasn't a bad one, but I did fall into the Rumi quota, or so it is when I spot this, it tells me where the person is on their own personal learning. Are they listening? I'm a great believer in reading is fantastic, but you have to be careful that you don't dilute what your soul has already telling you. Your soul doesn't put you wrong. My experience with clients, and I tell them this, and they're like, wow, the soul won't put you wrong. You, mainstream, will put yourself wrong. Will go. So you're not listening. And part of my treatment that I use with people, and I know that is the truth, because we read about it all the time, whether it's Hinduism, Islamism, Christianity, we're all talking about the soul, and we're talking about the soul for a reason. I don't talk about other authors because they don't. I'm not hearing everybody else talk about your descriptions. I'm talking about a universal descriptions which covers through all of the religions. So I'm listening to. Are you a Rumi quota, or have you gone through that stage and you're now, and this is where the depression comes, because the Rumi doesn't work. All those citing quotes, you're eating from that bowl. What happens when that bowl of Rumi quotes is empty? You become hungry. You start to become depressed. When we're depressed, we clutch at straws. When we clutch at straws, that's when bad things start to happen. So in my 15 years and my lifetime of being a seer, I've incorporated the two into this, and it's an infrastructure which helps an awful lot. It's almost like I've gone through the Rumi quotes, I've rinsed it. Now I really need to understand. I need to speak to somebody who isn't going to come at me with all you need is love. Love is amazing, but what it doesn't help with, if my mind is attacking me, all the love in the world isn't going to help me out of this situation. If somebody is attacking me, to stop them, and I go, I love you, that doesn't stop them attacking me. So there's a lot of people out there who are saying you need to find yourself, you need to find love, that's all you need. Well, it doesn't work for us survivors. Love is very important, but it isn't going to help you out of this. You need somebody else who's been there, seen it, done it, and has done the Rumi stuff. And this is what I teach. This is what I teach to survivors. It's the art of listening. It's a huge art. Again, I'll go right back to listen to your soul is huge. The amount of people who haven't got a clue, they would rather pick up a book by so and so and go, no, he says that, and they'll go against what their soul is telling them. And I choose that formula because I know it's a worldwide phenomenon. There's more believers in how the soul works than there is of any author on this planet, and that's where I focus in on. That's so, and that's what I give people information that they can work with. I don't give them impossible information that they'll never attain. I just want to be a Rumi specialist. You ain't got been time for that. I've been there, I've wasted that time. So this is how I work with those who don't want to be here anymore, those who don't know why they're here, those who have had a terrible experience, as I have. It's where am I now? How do I cope with what's at me now? How do I cope? How comes all the animals keep talking to me? How comes I know what you're going to say? How do I cope with that? Is that normal? But it's not covered. It isn't covered because it's too traumatic. It's too triggering.
Have you seen many of those cases where people develop these faculties, like hearing the animals
Yes.
or
Oh, yeah.
predicting the
Yes.
future.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Yeah. We spot each other. We spot each other. And that's what's, because, but many are giving it off, but they don't know what they're giving off. When I was at IANS in Pennsylvania, 2019, as a keynote speaker there, along with Reverend Bill and Tony Woody, Lilia from IANS. There was over 400 people at this meeting over a period of 4 days, and it was beautiful for me. I was fully into counselling by then, and it was good to spot the themes. And the themes is that many of us knew we were different, but we didn't know why, because it was so rare to have 400 of us over a period of 4 days. And you just became used to it. I gave an interview with Bill. I had email messages and lots of communications with Reverend Bill McDonald, before the Pennsylvania conference. And I remember talking to Jeff O'Driscoll, a doctor. He's had his own death experience. And out the corner of my eye, and this is in relation to those of us who see things, out the corner of my eye, I see Reverend Bill. He had his black hat on. He was walking through the hotel lobby where I was talking to Jeff O'Driscoll. I looked at him, and he had this thing sitting on top of him as he walked. And I said it to Bill in his interview. I remember you walking through the hotel lobby, and you had this thing that was sitting on you, and it was plugged into your arms. It was feeding off you. And he was like, I thought he's going to go, you're crazy, or why didn't you tell me before? Because I know, and it's common knowledge, otherwise I wouldn't say it, exactly where I had told Bill where this thing was feeding on him is where they cut the cancer out of him. So many of us are coming back with these skills. And we all do it, AJ. This is the thing. I'm not unique. It's a bit like this guitar. If I don't pick it up and play it, I don't get better. So if I don't practice the art of what I'm being told, well, I'm never going to improve. And it's back to the listening again. It's accepting that. I don't know whether you do it. I often say to people who come to me and go, do you, I know you're a seer. So how I see things myself. So, well, what do you see? Well, I see cancers on people. So do I. I've seen cancer jump from one person to another. Yeah, so have I. And this is when we start to come forward. It's like, and now what we're finding out is that I heard a whisper last year on mainstream media that they're starting to find out that some cancers are contagious. And they do jump from one to another. So we're starting to see things, and you mark my words, is that many of us will start to report more of this, and it will come out that that's exactly what is happening. I spoke to somebody the other day another client who said, Ray, when you worked on the chemo unit, what did you see? And I said, I could write a book about that alone. I said, I spent 18 months on a chemo unit. And the reasons why I went and worked on a chemo unit was because I was in such disbelief at what I was seeing. And I knew that if I worked in a hospital, if it turned out that I wasn't as good as what I thought I was, they're going to get rid of you fast. That I told you the story how I ended up there. The nurse asked me, did she have cancer? I said, yeah, you have. Turn around. It's right here. It's that size, So when she said, did you want to work here? I really had to think about it. If you get this wrong, Ray, it's going to be devastating. They're going to they'll laugh you out of the hospital. But I didn't get it wrong. And it started that some of the doctors, the oncologists would talk to me. Can I have a quiet chat with you? That stuff that I have seen, things that I've seen here. So many of us, many who are on that cancer unit had like very close death experiences. Some were very lucky to still be there. So they're coming back altered. They're coming back with such bravery that, sometimes when I think about it, it almost makes me cry. It's through what they've seen more and suffered more than I have seen, and how has it altered them? Just incredible. Even to be with a person who's at peace with themselves is just, I find that staggering to learn. I'm always soaking that up. I'm like trying to suck the world up through a straw when I hear all of this. It's like, just give me more information. So many of us are coming back with these traits. I meet people all the time, AJ. It's like, because they know who I am, that they know that I'm not going to sit there and snigger and go, oh yeah, okay, because I'm one of those. Like, I get clients all around the world. Will you look at a horse for me? Have I got cancer? Have I got this? And it's not unique to me.
What about people who do come back with peace and understanding everything after a near-death experience? Have you found those too?
Yeah, I have, again, it takes. When I come back with a client, if a client comes to see me who comes with that, I'm extra careful with them. I'm extra careful, because I know, I understand the timescales. I know what you'll come back with. Many of us that they say, medical evidence says that it takes on average 4 years to get over a heart attack, the brain. So how long? I don't know what the research is. How long does it take after a cardiac arrest? I don't know, where you've got the oxygen starvation that alters us. So it's a very difficult subject matter, but I am getting an awful lot now. More are becoming troubled when they've processed the whole experience, and then they sit down on a quiet moment, or maybe they're checking a video out about near death just to find a little bit more about how did that person cope, how's this person coped. I learned a lot from soldiers. I spent a very short time working with soldiers because of their own near deaths. So a lot of soldiers, if they're on active service, will be facing death every day. Will I walk on a landmine? Is somebody going to shoot me? So this can go on for like 8-9 months, whatever the tour lasts, and it affects them. It affects them massively. Or if somebody's in front of them, their friend might step on a landmine, and they're looking at that. So all of this, and then when they come back, so the soldiers are a very, very, very difficult client to work with. I can't give details at the moment, but I've got an excellent connection in our army here to move forward with the NDE stuff, because the church within the British Army are very skeptical. A lot in the English Army, religion is a big thing. Church on a Sunday, it binds the soldiers together. So my experience of some of the church clergymen who I have spoken to who are involved in the army won't allow people like me in at the moment, because I give a different perception. So so it can go ahead. So very delicate talks are going on at the moment about how can I help others, give them their due. They still want to help, and I think that's beautiful. But again, it's such a specialized field, AJ. You've really got to know where you are with it, and that's the trouble with this. If you're moving into this field and you don't know, well, then it doesn't take much to lose your client. Whether that be through to suicide, train of thought, nobody understands, you don't get it. A lot of I learned from. I had an awful lot of counselling. Was with an awful lot of counsellors, and it's very interesting to listen to what their perceptions are of what has happened and how they use that within the counselling room. We're all human. We all get transference when we talk to each other, you know. But this is a field where if you kind of get it wrong, you may lose the client. You know, the client will give up, and then the next thing is, you know, that you know, they may take their life. So it's something which is very much not touched upon.
So based on what you say, there's a lot of need for new research, new counselors.
Yes.
This
yes,
is like an unexplored field.
Yes. You know, the most beautiful thing about what you do, about what others do with the interview is that my event profoundly affects me. It profoundly affects my family. It profoundly affects relationships, friendships, you know, love relationships. It just affects me hugely. You know, can I go out? Can I mix with this person? You know, if I hear an ambulance, oh my goodness gracious me, woof! It's like, you know, I have to make a conscious effort of, it's not for you. It's not for you. You know, it's not for you. You know, many of us will have, or will have died on the floor at home. You know, we would have, like me, died in the back of the ambulance and then died in the hospital. You know, it's very difficult. But with what you do and with the questions that you ask me, you won't believe how rare it is of the intricacies of your questions. Your questions are amazing. And many who do interviews don't understand what to ask. So it tells me you really do your research, and it's a pleasure to work with you, because I know people will watch your videos, will read your books, and it shows up that there needs to be a revolution, a new revolutionary way of thinking about the event. Is a separate entity in itself, but it's what happens to us when we get let out of hospital, when we're walking around. How does that touch us? You know, and this is where the change, this is where the new counsellors has to come in. This is where, you know, more doctors need to be spoken to. And this is the direction where myself and my partner are intending to go in. It's like, it's all right, it's lovely talking one-to-one, but it's not enough. You know, with the pandemic and all of the heart issues that we're seeing, you know, where some people are suffering from having that injection or the sequence of injections. Here, people are dying at a rate which you will not believe. You know, the shops are becoming empty, AJ. It's like, you know, the traffic is becoming less. You know, people are becoming traumatized. You know, our experience real near death, like, you know, parts of the heart isn't working, or, you know, they've got blockages. You know, there's a whole new market out there to, you know, this is where we need to be. The event is wonderful, but that's gone. I now am living in like, as I describe, a living hell. It's like, I've seen the other side, both sides. You know, I have the fear of, you know, the trauma side of it. Oh my God, don't send me back to the grey. And then I have the other side of, you know, this little soul, you know, and he's not supposed to be here. So, you know, it's huge. I try to stay away from, it's all love and peace and you know, it's all jolly. It's not. It is not like that. It's like, you know, people take it as a weakness if they can't express the same, say, like, you're lucky to be here. You know, and this is why many of us are lying. This is why we're quiet about it, because, you know, I should be thankful. I feel guilty that, you know, they did all this work and I'm not happy to be back here. You know, it's huge. It's huge. I'm not understood is probably the biggest thing that I'm hearing. Why doesn't a doctor understand that I have died? How do they think, what, you know, how do they expect me to be okay with this? And that's what is crippling. That's soul destroying. You know, this is happening. I don't know how many times a day survivors are coming back. You know, but it's almost as if what's happening to us is not validated because it's happening so much. But the effects are still the same. You know, so yes, it was beautiful, my experience. Some of it was wonderful, but it's about now. You know, it's about how do I go forward? No one. I've had to learn this the hard way. Carl Jung, Carl Rogers, all of this sort of stuff that's combined within my counselling, Freud, it all becomes really relevant. I've met a lot of people who come to see me not for an NDE experience, but just maybe they want some mentoring. I've seen that quite a lot. But the ones who have had an NDE or have been verified as having died, not a near death, a death, it's a bit of a contradiction in terms. I use NDE because it's great for the internet. But if you ask me, my main clients who I deal with are who have been recorded, verified as their heart has stopped. I don't deal so much with I nearly stepped in front of that bus. I can still associate with that, but I associate better with did you flatline, and has it been? Did you medically flatline? And if you have, then I can work with you.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad we had this talk.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
I love talking to you, Raymond, and
I'm
really glad that you're helping people as best as they can be helped. I feel that some people are harder than others, and it's good to know that the way you think, because a lot of people, they have been sharing on internet that having a near-death experience is wonderful, but you are showing us the dark side of near-death experiences.
Very dark.
So I thank you for this, Raymond.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for asking. It means that seriously, it's nice to know that there's quality researchers and interviewers like you who take time and who know what they're talking about. Because honestly, AJ, there's been a few who I have, not many, but there's been maybe 2 or 3 interviewers who are very well known, and I just think you shouldn't even be talking to us. You just shouldn't. It's like, it's not until you're further down the line when you realize if you're not used to doing this, it will impact you. I don't mind telling you what happened to me. I think in the last week, I couldn't tell you why. Just burst into tears. Couldn't tell you. Wanted to go back home, I suppose. So you don't get away from it. It's like it's with us. So it's beautiful, lovely wonderful to have this conversation with you. It's nice to share.
Well,
Appreciate
thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
This has been the AJ Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.